Okay, video support for your work, energy, power, impulse, and momentum. So, sa akong kulatira ka chapter or sa ka panglong quiz. Okay? So, usa-usang ko la, usa ka problem with work, then I will proceed to usa ka problem iton power, usa ka problem. So, kadlay ito. Para dapat ako makacover. Anyway, again, for section A, baga wala kita magklase-klase, but for the B and the C, nagkaklase man ako. So, video support for them. And for A, actually, diri ko man sala ako klase. Kailangan ko lang talaga yung tapos. So, naghimula ako yung video support. Actually, so kita ang tala kung pera patatong time during face-to-face discussion. So, we have a problem 3. Iti bagin solve ko na ini habingan na si. So, skip lang niyo. Kumbaga, di niyo kailangan. Anyway, a factory worker pushes a 30 kilogram crate a distance of 4.5 meter along a level floor at constant velocity. So actually, importante ito yung word kay makakasabot kita nga that is applying your summations of forces will be equal to 0. Again, law of inertia. Law of inertia, pwede ka na may velocity but that is constant. Or dire talaga nakiwa. So that is law of inertia. While your law of acceleration, of course, your summations of force would have an acceleration if there is a net force for that. Um, an acceleration would be created. Okay, since nakabutang ang constant velocity, so be summations of forces on x, kung x dapat ginistoryahan would be equal to 0. So I represented it like this. So you have a worker and this pushing this crate, 30 kilogram with about 4.50 meters, and then you have a kinetic of friction. Therefore, there's a frictional force. So mag-FBD kita aton crate, so alit FBD niya. So may mo force at ipakadi, that frictional force is opposing. So ikot na drawing niya. So kita at iti mo movement. So kung hindi mo movement, balik ta dito permitted imo frictional force. And then you have a normal force which is somewhat related to your frictional force by the formula F is equal to mu n, fun. Okay? And then, kita anta what we need. So, summations of Fx is equal to 0 kay nagsiring constant velocity. Again, that is law of inertia or law of equilibrium. Okay? Summations of forces on x is equal to 0. And then, anot ada imo x, that may daka positive F going to the right side, and then you have a negative friction going to the left side. So, basically, you have a F which is equal to your frictional force. Now, letter A problem is just what is this F? Okay, but that F is equal to your frictional force. Now, your frictional force is equal to mu n. Mu n. But again, and again, we don't have a normal force for this. So, maybe we can have another equation. Let's try summations of forces on y. So, summations of forces on y, sigurado equilibrium diri makiwa on your y-axis. So, therefore, that should also be 0. So, haimo summations of forces on y, ani mo ti paigbawla is normal force, and then ani mo ti paubos is your weight. So, basically, you have an equation that is normal force is equal to weight. So, you can substitute now your mu and then equal to weight. But you know your weight is equal to mg. Okay? So your weight is equal to mg. So basically, your force that you're trying to find is mu mg. So you'll have to substitute mu, that is 0.25, and then mass, which is 30 kilogram, 30 kilogram, and then your acceleration due to gravity is 9.80665 meters per second squared. And by that, you can compute for that force that the worker would apply. 0.25 times 30 times 9.80665. And that would give us 73.5. Okay? So 73.5. And then kilogram meters per second squared, that is equal to Newton. That is letter A. Okay? How about for letter B? Letter B, how much work is done on the crate by this force? So, with respect to work, I would advise you really go back to the definition of your work. So, your work of that F, iputan ko na work of that F, kaya na pwede compute nitong work it friction, work it on total. So, ikuan talara bulag-bulagon. So, this is the work because of that force F. That is, of course, that F, ano ito nga F, gisisiring with respect to a displacement S. So, S would be displacement yan na, or that is x2 minus x1. Okay? Or, tantama to saying, that would be the 4.50 meters. So, kung gindusoy ni Yate Pakadi, that is 4.50 meters, ano nga particular F or a force F and ma-multiply ito. Okay, because these are both vector quantities. Kung danay baliktad dito ira, this should have a negative value. So kung pareho ira, your F is going to this side, well, your displacement is going to this side. So basically, diretso lang niya. So meaning, diretso tala ito niyo mo 73.5 Newton and then multiplied by your your displacement 4.50 meters. And then you would have, and that would be 331. 331 Newton meter is joule. So 1 joule is equal to 1 Newton meter. Okay? That is for your letter B. So malakas naman siguro. How about letter C? How much work is done on the crate by friction? So for the work on friction, this is letter B. So for your work on your friction, your work on because of your friction, that would be, of course, the definition would be what force F, particular talking about that friction, and then displacement. So the friction is actually opposite to the displacement. Opposite to the displacement. So basically, or anyway, you know that your friction is going to the side, but from the previous solution, you know that your friction is just equal to your F. Kaya lang, pabaliktad siya. Okay? So, in terms of magnitude, ito rin, but for your direction, it should be a negative F multiplied by your displacement, 4.50. Or, madaling sabi, tingnan mo yung displacement mo. Yung displacement mo ay galing dito. But your force is not going along with that, so the work of that should be negative. Okay? So, the work of that should be negative. So, negative F. So, again, frictional force is mu mg. So, amo na yun nga 73.5. So, ibubutang ta lang 73.5 times 4.50 meters. And the answer for your frictional work would be a negative 331 joule. Okay? Your work is a scalar quantity. Yung negative niya is ay negative work. An opposite to the displacement. Usually yun yung tanong. Pareho lang yan um, kung pababa, meron kang binababa. So yung work dyan is magne-negative. Kung ikaw yung pag-usapan. Pero yung work ng gravity is magpa-positive. Parang ganun. So tingnan mo lang yung displacement at saka yung force na direction ng force. Pag magkasalungat yan, you should have a negative work for that. So that is letter C. Mayroon pa? How about for letter D? How much work is done the crate by the normal force? So for the normal force, letter D, tingnan nyo na lang dito. Yung normal force ay papunta dito. May displacement ba papunta dito? Of course, if you try to define your work on the normal force, and then that is F and S, so ano ba yung force? Yung normal force, meron. Meron kang normal force. So this would be an N. Kaya lang yung problema, mayroon ka bang displacement na papunta dito? Kasi mag-perpendicular yan. So pag perpendicular yan, wala kang scalar product dyan. So basically, your work for the normal force is yung S mo ay wala kang displacement papunta sa direction ng normal force. So this would be 0. So yung work ng normal force mo would be 0. Okay? How about ano pa? Letter E by gravity. Letter E by gravity, ganun din. Yung gravity mo pababa. So, meron ka bang displacement on your Y? Wala. So, therefore, yung work ng gravity ay equal to 0 din. Kasi wala kang displacement along that force weight or along the gravity. Okay? What is the total work done by the crate, on the crate? So, the total work done on the crate, letter E, work total, T, that would be equal to, again, i-define mo yung F at saka yung S, yung force at saka displacement. Of course, yung F mo dyan ay yung total force. Meaning, ano ba yung total force sa displacement? So, that would be your summations of Fx with respect to your displacement because your displacement is going to X. Ano yung summations of force on X? That is yung F minus F multiplied by 4.50 meters. So basically, itong dalawa ay magkapareho. So yung total work done mo ay 0 pa rin. 0 pa rin yung total work done. Kasi yung F at saka frictional force ay magkapareho. So actually, yun yung nangyayari pag law of equilibrium. 'Di ba? Kung law of equilibrium kasi is either yung summations of force mo dito 0, meaning yung total force mo ay 0. Or summations of forces are 0 or net force is 0. So, ganun din yan. Pero, pag may velocity ka, ganun pa rin. Kasi yung summations of forces mo is 0 for a constant velocity. Mag-iiba lang siya pag mayroong siyang acceleration. Because your summations of forces would be equal to ma or mass times acceleration ng body. Okay? So, that is concept-wise. So, thank you guys. So, ipuputol-putulin ko lang para hindi masyado mahabang yung video. Thank you guys for listening.